Hi everyone, welcome back to the Crafty Author. My name is Anissa and I'm going to be starting a new series on how to make a very simple baby quilt. I'm going to take you through from start to finish. So this first segment is going to be about preparing the fabric and then cutting it. So, excuse me. The quilt that I'm going to show you is one that I have gone ahead and made. All right, so this quilt is made out of 5.5-inch squares. And I used 9 fat quarters to cut them. So I normally cut these with my QUILT Go, but I will also show you how to cut them just with a rotary cutter and a ruler. So that's all you're going to need is a rotary cutter and a ruler and some fat quarters, or you can use yardage, whatever you want to use. This is your baby quilt. As far as cutting strips for the borders, I like to wait until I have the quilt pieced with the squares first, because then I can accurately measure it. So for this particular quilt, I cut 54 5.5-inch squares. And you will have some left over. But let me make sure I'm telling you the right math, because $42 is what it really will take. But I went ahead and cut 54. So cut however many you would like, but I would say a minimum of 42. That's how many squares you're going to need. But if you cut the 54, it just evens out the amount of squares that you'll have. I hope that made sense. So I've already got my fat quarters here, and I am using a Riley Blake bundle for this. I forgot to turn my iron on, so we're still waiting for it to heat up just a little bit. Okay. We're good. All right. So all I'm going to do is just take my iron and I'm going to press out these wrinkles. Now I am using steam with my iron. So and I just go over it until I can get the majority of the wrinkles out. And this wrinkle is gone, but it was indented in there. So I like to iron from behind first, and then I will go ahead and do a quick press on the front as well. So now we have one that's already done and ready to be cut. We'll do our next one. See, they're folded. This is how most fat quarters come. So you just want to be mindful here and take your time. I try to press, smooth it out with my hands first before I iron. Just makes it a little bit easier. So I'm just demonstrating this again so that you see. Now we want to cut our 5.5-inch squares. I'm going to cut off this small selvage end over here because we do not want this in our quilt. So I'm just going to take up my ruler and I'm just going to give this a quick slice. And I do fold it in half to do that. And I want to see I'm usually able to get 6 of these 5.5 inch squares out of 1 fat quarter. All right. So I've gone ahead and I cut that straight edge now, so it's perfect. I'm going to line it up on the line on my mat. And I see that I need to even up this edge as well. So you want to make sure that your fabric is really well prepared and cut straight, because you don't want to have your squares not matching. And this is why the AccuQuilt is awesome, because I can just put it on there and it's going to cut it perfectly. I don't have to do all this prep to my fabric. So, but for those of you who are going to be cutting with a rotary cutter and a ruler, this is an important step, okay? All right, so now we're straight here and we're straight here. We're good. We are good to go. Put that up. Okay. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to count over 5.5 inches. Make sure that I'm going to cut a little bit more off this edge just to straighten it before we cut it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. So 13.5 is where we're going to go with this one. Just going to line my ruler straight up on that line. I'm using the lines here on my cutting mat. And then I'm just going to give it a nice cut. I'm going to be careful moving my ruler because we don't want to move the fabric. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because I'm already on the half mark. We're going to do it again. Just give this a little move over there. So 24.5. All right, so now I have my strips cut. All right, this is not big enough to use, but we could use this in a border, so we want to keep that off to the side, or you can use it in another project if you're going to do something scrappy. So next, what I'm going to do to make this go a little quicker is I'm just going to line up here. Better move it up a little higher. And then I'm going to put this piece here. And this will help us to cut this much faster. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim again. I'm going to do this on the half mark. I just want to get this, I want to make sure that my sides are going to be straight. So on the half mark here, I just want to make sure, and I'm just using my mat again, I just want to clean up these edges so that when we cut, we're going to get a good clean cut. So now we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're doing that because we're already on that half mark that we cut. And you can use a weight to do this, to hold this down to make it so that nothing moves. And now we have our perfect 5.5 inch square. And I just keep cutting, excuse me, until now I've already got 6 here. So I can actually stop and leave these. We can use these in the quilt if we would like to. Okay? So you can get your 6 5.5 inch squares from a fat quarter. Now, these are all directional. The fabrics are directional. So for this quilt, we're going to have to pay attention to what direction these flowers are going in, because we don't want it to be upside down and looking goofy. Okay? So it's a good thing to stack them like this now when you first start, so that you don't have to think about this later like I'm doing right now. All right, so there's our stack of our yellows. Let's do this one more time. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to cut off my selvage edge. Because we do not want that in our quilt. I'm going to also flip this and do it this way. And then I'll show you a different way that you can actually cut this. There's that. And then I'm just going to even it up here. So I'm just taking the piece of fabric that's folded in half, and I'm just making sure that I have everything straight. Okay, we're good. So I'm going to show you a different way to do this. So after we've cleaned up the edges on our fabric here, we're going to leave this folded in half. And we are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. This will let you cut more layers. And I find it to be a little easier because then you have, it's just easier to control the fabric. You're not working with a big long piece. You're working with a smaller piece, which actually makes it, I find, a little easier to cut. So either way is fine. Do which method works best for you. Okay, so now I have my 3 pieces here. Whoops. I don't know, that thing is giving me fits today. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. Always count twice and cut once. You have excess here. So here's 2. We're going to do the same thing here. And actually, if you wanted to go faster, we can always stack them again. Just make sure that you're not moving the fabric and all of that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. And we have all of our squares cut. So all 6 of them are ready to go. So now we've cut 12 squares so far. So all you're going to do is repeat this method throughout the whole process until you get all of your squares cut up. And then once your squares are cut, I will come back and I will show you how we put these together. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful on how to cut the fabric in different ways. There's no right or wrong way on how to do this. I'll make you straight. It's just a personal preference on how you want to cut it. Do you want to cut it with the fabric being full sized, or do you want to fold it in half and cut it that way? So whatever works for you. So give it a try. If you have an AccuQuilt, you know that you can cut your 5.5 inch squares on that if you have that particular die. It's awesome. I love it, and that's how I do it. Especially since the arthritis in my hands today, especially this one, is really acting up. My hand keeps just like locking up, and it's very painful. So I'm going to end up using my AccuQuilt for this. So that's what we're going to do. So go ahead and get your your fat quarters ironed out, get them cut, and our next video will be sewing the blocks together, laying it out and sewing it together. So if you would like to follow me on social media, the links are down below in the description box. I do have a private personal Facebook group that everybody is welcome to join and share their projects there or ask questions. So make sure you send me a request so I can approve you to get into there. Keep on crafting, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.